It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at Palantir number 6 from 1982. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer, and this is our channel Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. Today it's the Palantir number 6 from 1982. And if you stick around to the end, I got a special bonus section to tell you about the end of this fanzine. Hope you enjoyed today's video. So today we're going to wrap up our look at this fanzine from the UK called Palantir. It was originally called The Palantir, and then they switched, I think on episode 3, they switched to just calling it Palantir. They switched the size this month. This is slightly actually longer than an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It's a heavy stock cover, and it's actually not bound at all. It looks like maybe it had some type of clip or something holding it along the side, but maybe you can see here the indentation, the slight indentation on the heavy stock that you could just slide off of there so that it made it loose leaf paper. If you stick around to the end, I'll explain some information that I have regarding the end of this fanzine and how it comes not to be produced any further. This is the last issue of the Palantir. Let's go ahead and take a look at the artwork. The artwork this time does not have any attribution. We're back to just sort of the crystal ball, right? That's the Palantir from Lord of the Rings, with some type of a Balrog demon, I think, inside of it. There's maybe like a scroll tube there with some ruins on it in quill, and then they have a couple notes here on the scroll piece of paper at the bottom. The Earthshrine, which is an adventure, and a couple other things from the table of contents. So the first thing we have is the editorial. This time it is written by Rob Malos, who's been involved for a while. Tony Ellam remains the titular person in charge of the fanzine, but it looks like other people are doing a lot of the work. They have a lot of contributions this time. We'll talk about those in just a second. But so Rob writes the editorial. He says, here's number 6, almost on time. Talks about all the interesting articles that they've been getting, the change in the size, the typeset, the binding, etc., and why they did those things. They thought to make it easier for you to access and pull out things that you might want to use, etc. And reminds everybody that they are producing this by BATA, the Bristol and Avon Dungeons and Dragons Association. They encourage you to join so that you can get free copies of the fanzine as well as discounted admission to their events. And you will remember that they put on a convention called the BA for Bristol and Avon Con, Bacon, and they've just done their 3rd one. They talk a little bit about that here in the fanzine. Let's take a look at the table of contents. So after the editorial, Menagerie, which is new monsters, Adventurers in Society, which is a look at a realistic look at sort of like what society you should be using in your fantasy campaign, and whether that's medieval or some other time period, or actually no time period from our history at all. Players' Thoughts gives some insights of one person has into what makes a fun campaign. Turning the Screws is an article on torture. Dragons, Horde, new magic items. Which FRP is talking about which game should you play after this person's had some experience playing some different ones. The Earthshrine is the adventure. Bacon 3 Ballroom Brawl is sharing with the readers something that was utilized at the convention. Reviews of a couple of items. They've got Boot Hill, or just one item is Boot Hill, and the second part of that page is the DM's notes, which is some ideas for initiative. And so I'll get out of the way so we can see the contributors. Tony Ellam, I don't know that he does anything. I don't remember seeing his name. And several people you can see here who participated. Dave Brown, Rob Malos, Elliott James, John Williams, Nicolas Clifton, Greg Burchall, Steve Cox, CG Perrott or Perrott, Clive Palmer, Tim Ruck, Ron Thomas, and John Regan. Some of those folks just get thanks from Rob in the editorial for their help, and I don't see their name in any of the with any of the articles. Okay, so at the top we've got the Palantir needs you, asking you to send stuff in, and here's Menagerie, which is the one monster this time, which is called the Horned Goral, and it's a magic user's creation. They take the head of a bull with like longhorned sheep or longhorned cattle, and then some type of a shroud from special flax that you can only find in a particular place. And magic user puts it all together and creates these creatures. They have some kind of a shrill whinny sound when you approach that can cause fear, and then each of their eyes can shoot out, as they call it a fireball, but it's more of a fire missile, I would say, because they have to roll to hit. It does 3d6 if it hits you, and they can try to guide it. And so if they stand still, if they're not taking any other action other than trying to guide the fireball, they can add a +3 to their attack. So probably, if they're at a distance, they would get that benefit. And here's just a slightly blown up picture of the artwork. So Adventures in Society, Fantasy Role-Playing Games in the Middle Ages, Elliott James article. And essentially he says, a lot of people say the Dungeons & Dragons is set in a medieval setting, and he wants to tell you he doesn't think it is. Other than, he says, Gygax's love of polearms. He says really the milieu and the characteristics that you see the most are not really true to medieval society. And he says most fantasy novels, etc., are really set in a sort of a time that doesn't exist in our world. And so I guess that's just a little intellectual article. Now we get players' thoughts, how to play the perfect game. And what he talks about is their campaign was, I think, a little Monty Hall. They were gaining a lot of experience, they were gaining levels, and they never died. And what he says essentially, the DM thought he was doing us a favor by making the games ones where there wasn't really that risk. And so no matter what happened, we always came out, the whole party survived. He said that wasn't really the right thing to do. And he says, so you need to add that element of real risk of death. It makes it more, the game actually, more tension, and that makes it more exciting, more enjoyable over time. Otherwise, it just becomes a rote. Go to the dungeon, kill the monsters, come home, gain levels, and repeat, right? We have an article on torture by John Williams. I don't think we needed this, but we got it anyway. And so he has the level of your torture, the level of the person being tortured, and he's got this whole chart and system where you could cause pain, and the more pain you cause, the more likely the person is to basically suffer loss of constitution, etc. I'm not really sure. I get the pain and I get the loss of constitution, potentially passing out and other things that he does, system shock rolls you have to make. None of this really gets to the point of forcing you to give honest information. It's just whether or not you can resist, I guess, responding. So anyway, for what it is, there's this guy's article. Dragon's Horde. These are fun. These are, he calls them multi-staves. Nicolas Clifton's article. And what I like here is he's got different ones for different classes. And what happens is these drain constitution from the user. You don't know this, but you can cast spells, which are good, but the more powerful the spell, the more constitution is being drained from you. And you get 1 point back per hour, but remember, if you had a good constitution, you would lose those bonus hit points as you lost constitution points. And obviously, if you fall below 0 constitution, you're going to be sort of stunned and out of it for a while. So again, it's got some balance to it. I think the spells here, for example, for clerics, the staff starts with Cure Light Wounds for 1 constitution point, all the way up to for 5 constitution points. You can cast Heal, Regenerate, Resurrection, Reincarnation, Restoration. Even though it takes away your constitution, that's probably, in my view, too powerful for just, if you save this and only use it to resurrect somebody at the cost of 5 constitution points, which you get back in 5 hours, that's probably too powerful. So I'd probably find some ways to tune this. But he's got that for clerics. A magic user and illusionists have one that basically casts more and more powerful illusion spells. There's one anybody can use that has detection abilities, detection of evil, detection of traps, detect alignment, all the different types of detection that can be used. Then there's one that has shielding, so everything from a shield, sanctuary, protection from evil, protection from cold, fire spells, up through anti-magic blade barriers, walls of fire, wall of ice, globes of invulnerability, prismatic sphere, prismatic wall. So again, at the high end, I think probably a little, the spell you can use for 5 constitution points probably a little too powerful, but the idea is good. And then there's one that can be used for summoning spells, from animal summoning or monster summoning all the way up through gating, creeping doom, etc. And so maybe, if it was me, maybe it only does the first couple of spells. Maybe you randomly roll for the constitution drain, and then it's a multiplier, so maybe I make you roll a d6 and then multiply by 1 through 5, so that you might instantly knock yourself out if you try to use something more powerful. But all in all, I like this idea of these different types of staff that have different things you can cast. It just needs tuned, I think. And then finally, I think I would call it a cursed item by Greg Burchall, which is called the Earring of Babel. There's only one of them, and when you put it on, everything you hear is translated into Orcish. So if you don't understand Orcish, then now you can't understand anything that anybody says, which I think would be fantastic. And even if you do understand Orcish, then obviously everything takes on a slightly more rudimentary characteristic. I'm assuming Orc language is less sophisticated. So those are our magic items. Which FRP, Stephen Cox, and he basically says, I played lots of D&D, then I played some Stormbringer, and I've been playing RuneQuest. He talks about the differences. He likes the flexibility of RuneQuest, which is you're just a hero or an adventurer, and you have lots of flexibility about what you can learn to do, whereas Dungeons & Dragons very much put you in a class, and you get specific skills, right, for that class that get better. So he compares and contrasts them. Basically says you want to play whatever it is that makes you have the most fun, and he likes the flexibility of D&D. He feels like it can sort of go anywhere that the party and the dungeon master wants to take it in terms of creativity, where he finds Stormbringer to be a little too deadly and RuneQuest to be a little more too restrictive in the world or setting where you're going to end up. All right, quite a large section of this is taken up with Earthshrine, the campaign adventure. It's really good, I think. It's you start off in a town. Something, I'll just to shorten it, there's something bad is going on in the forest. Some people have gone out to investigate. They don't return, so now the heroes are being sent out to see if they can figure out what's happened in the forest and make sure that nothing bad has happened, which of course something bad has happened, and you'll have to go into this underground complex and find the bad guys and get rid of them and survive in the process, right? Really good. And here's the maps, and then they like this thing. Let me go back. Here's the maps, just to let you see those. They said one of the things with this new binding is they could insert things into the fanzine, and so this is just like a little piece of I don't know, like tissue paper, and it's just floating in there. You can see they just stuck it. They stuck it into the fanzine, and I'll show it to you. And then they printed on there, now wipe your sword, as if you had defeated some kobolds or something, I suppose, and now you would use that to clean up your sword. It's supposed to be funny. I thought it was clever. So now we have Bacon 3, the Ballroom Brawl, which is quite good. Sounds like a lot of fun. I think it would be fun to run. I'll give you just a quick summary here. So everybody gets a different, so there's a magic user who happens to be chaotic evil, has accused a half-orc of stealing something from him. And they tell you in here that that's a lie. The chaotic evil magic user wants to report it stolen so that he can keep it for himself, and because he's borrowed this from somebody else in town. And he's decided to pin it on this half-orc. And so everybody's got a different role. You've got the guy who's the judge, the accused, the magic user. The magic user has hired a gnome to lie for him. There's the barkeeper, the barkeeper's friend who's a guard in town who's making sure nobody tries to attack the accused before it's all over. The local drunk, curious onlookers, random people who happen to be in the bar. And I assume everybody just gets their little blurb about who they are, what their motivation is, and most people have some type of motivation that interacts with somebody else. And then we're just going to turn it loose. And they said the dungeon master should probably play the role of the judge, but it's just going to turn into chaos. once you know what all the different people's motivations are, and it's going to turn into a brawl, and it's going to be sort of be a free-for-all. And I think it's just sort of a, fun hour-long event that people are going to think was pretty silly, but also pretty entertaining. For great thing to do at a con, or maybe at the end of a session one night if you had some extra time. They reviewed Boot Hill, and they like it quite a bit. Their only complaint is they wish there was more campaigns, so that a dungeon master, if you will, wasn't required to do so much work to create the ongoing campaign, the ongoing adventures. And then D.L. Brown has an idea for how to improve the initiative system, which is essentially roll D6. You want to be low goes first. Roll D6, subtract your dexterity reaction bonuses, including racial bonuses to that adjustment. Then add in your weapon speed adjustment, which I didn't use, but if you wanted to be precise about it, that does make sense. Small thing like a dagger goes before a giant, two-handed warhammer, I suppose. And then you get your initiative order that way. And then he also says he has, based on movement rate for monsters, he gives them dexterity bonuses like characters get for their dex. And so that's his idea. The other thing I wanted to mention here, I don't know Forever People. It's a gaming store, I think is the right way of saying it. And they have been the sponsor for Palantir, and they've had an ad on the back page, but this is the first time I think they've had any really art throughout. So, but I just wanted to mention for anybody who might have been from that area or who remembers that store, I wanted to point out this gaming store called Forever People, who's been the forever sponsor of Palantir. So that brings us to the end of Palantir number 6, and it brings us to the end of our discussion of this fanzine, almost. So included in with this was a piece of paper folded in half, handwritten. This is obviously a photocopy of the handwritten note from Tony Ellam, in which he explains that this is the end of Palantir. So they made number 6, they were working to make number 7, and Tony just said that's enough. And I guess nobody else was willing to take on complete leadership, even though like Rob did this past issue. And he basically just says, I'm just not that interested in role-playing games, I'm just not that interested in D&D anymore, and my heart's just not in producing this anymore. And so, unfortunately, that's it. And if you join BATA, we're going to give you a refund, because not only is this the end of Palantir, this is the end of BATA, I guess, as well. And he apologizes to the people who, were looking forward to new issues of the fanzine, people who wanted their articles they turned in to be published, etc. But that's the end. He says, now and he includes 3 pages, one article that I had that I feel like I need to share. And this is an interview with a guy named Bob Pennington, who they mentioned came and painted miniatures at one of the Bacon's cons that they ran. And he basically just asked him, it's an interview, he talks to him about painting miniature figurines and what type of paint he uses and what his techniques are for different things. And it's a nice little interview that he wanted to share. And so that really is the end for today's video. It's the end for the Palantir. We'll take up a new one next week. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving yesterday and you're having a good Thanksgiving holiday if you're here in the United States and you're a Thanksgiving celebrator. And everybody around the world, I hope if you're watching this video, you're enjoying what we're putting on. Hope you're subscribed. If you have friends who might be willing to subscribe, please send them our way. We'd always like to build the community that's helping us enjoy the history of fanzines that we're doing here each week, as well as all the other videos that I have on my channel. All right, my friends, have a great weekend. Until next time, keep rolling towards.